Seit, seitdem, bevor, ehe, nachdem, sobald, bis. All of them are German temporal conjunctions and introduce temporal clauses. So in today's video, I will explain you the meaning and the difference of all those different German temporal conjunctions. Hi, my name is Jan and I'm your German teacher here on EasyDeutsch, your YouTube channel for German grammar. Today's topic is temporal conjunctions. Yes, all of them are subordinating conjunctions, which means subordinate clause, so Nebensatz, so verb to the very end of the sentence. But apart from that, they all have very different meanings. And with the help of my ebook, German Grammar Explained Easily, I will show you now what those differences are and what you have to pay attention to. So let's switch into my ebook. So we're here now in my ebook, German Grammar Explained Easily. Today's topic is temporal clauses and temporal conjunctions. So let's go through my table of content and let's jump right in there. Where do we have them? There we go. So let's zoom in. First question, what are temporal clauses? Yes, there are subordinate clauses. We talked about this already. So verb goes to the very end of the sentence, and they also begin with the temporal conjunctions. And I guess you can already guess it yourself what they're all about. They're all about time. Temporal, the name gives it kind of away. Everything that's connected to time, and depending on the different conjunction, they indicate different things, like about when does something begin and how long does it take and whether it's occurring simultaneously or not. So let's go through the different temporal conjunctions step by step. Let's start with Seit or seitdem. They're both the same, so there's no difference in meaning between them, and they mean that a state or an action has begun in the past and is not yet finished. And the sentence with so the temporal sentence, the sentence part with Seit or seitdem indicates the moment when it actually started. So for example, ich lerne Deutsch, seitdem ich in Deutschland wohne. So here both the action and the state have begun the time I moved to Germany, and both are not finished yet. Why this is important? 1 second after we check the second sentence. Seitdem ich einen Unfall hatte, sitze ich im Rollstuhl. So here, since I had an accident, I'm word by word sitting in a wheelchair. Here, the action sitting in a wheelchair has started when the action in the temporal clause started or when this happened. This is a finished thing because it was a one-time incident. The accident is finished now. So that's why we're using the past tense here. But if this action or the state we're talking about in the temporal clause is still ongoing, we use present tense. Remember, present tense for everything that's still ongoing, and if it has happened, we use the past tense here. I highlight this because usually that's translated with since in English, but there you don't use present tense whatsoever there. So that's why it's not always the 100% correct translation here. So that's why pay attention to the tenses here if English is your native language. Let's have a look at the second one here, bis. Bis means until. So that means that something ends at one certain point in time. And if we have this as a conjunction, it means that the action of the main clause and the subordinate clause end at the same point in time. For example, ich bleibe hier, bis ich mit meiner Arbeit fertig bin. So I stay here until I finished my work. Here, when I finish the action working, doing, I will also finish the action staying here. Both will end at the same time simultaneously. They also happen simultaneously here. Bis du mit der Arbeit fertig bist, sehe ich ein bisschen fern. So until you finished work, I will watch a little bit of TV. So the action watching TV and the action to work are happening at the same time and also ending at the same time. Ich warte hier auf dich, bis du wieder zurückkommst. I will wait here for you until you come back. So the action waiting will end in the moment I will be back. So both actions end at the same time. Pretty straightforward, same in English. Next one is während, so during. This means two actions occur simultaneously without the need to end at the same time. So this is the difference here. And ich gehe einkaufen, während du die Wohnung aufräumst. So I go shopping while you clean up the apartment. Während du Computer spielst, lerne ich. While you're playing computer, I learn. So sorry for the translation. Here, the English as conjunction is while. You have während also as a preposition, then it's during. So if you want to learn more about während as preposition, please check out my preposition videos, which I will link in the info cards for you. Here, both actions happen simultaneously, but we have no statement about whether they will end at the same point in time or not. And the next one is solange. Solange also express simultaneity, but the difference to this is that both actions are guaranteed to end at the same point in time. So ich werde putzen, solange ihr eure Hausaufgaben macht. So I will clean as long as you do your homework. And we're not talking about the condition, we're talking about the temporal meaning of as long as. So solange du bei mir bist, habe ich keine Angst. As long as you're with me, I'm not afraid. Means the moment I leave, she's afraid. And here it means I will clean until you've finished your homework. And that means I might haven't finished the whole entire house, the entire apartment. Still, there's a room that's still dirty. But the point here is that I will do this until you finished this, and then we probably do something else. The difference here to this is it's guaranteed to end at the same time, while this is more or less at the same time. And now let's have a look at one of the most important ones. It's nachdem, so after. And with nachdem, we express that something does not, pay attention, not happen at the same time. So far, we talked a lot about things that happen simultaneously. Now we're talking about the stuff that's not happening at the same time. And here the action in the main clause occurs after the action in the subordinate clause has already ended, which means we have to use different tenses because one has to be somehow in the past, even if the other one is present tense. So let's have a look how it looks like if we have the main clause in future, present, or in a past tense. Let's have an example for all of them. Ich werde dir helfen, nachdem du den Müll rausgebracht hast. So I will help you after you brought down or brought out word by word the trash. Here we have future tense, werden future, in the main clause, and we use a past tense, the perfect here, in the temporal clause with nachdem. So nachdem always triggers different tense because both actions cannot happen simultaneously. The action in the subordinate clause must have ended already. I'll say like, why don't we use present? Because that would be one step down from future only. This is kind of two steps down. And yes and no at the same time. Remember, if you checked my videos about the present and the present can be used to describe future things, so future actions. And therefore, it's often better to use present perfect tense here. And if it is actually an action, it has to be the past tense because this action has to be finished before this can happen. That's why it has to be in the past before this can happen, even if it's in the future. The only difference is if it's a state, and you do this with to be. So if you do an adjective plus sein, then you actually use the present tense. But this is actually, for example, ich werde dir helfen, nachdem du mit den Hausaufgaben fertig bist. But this is a common example that is actually not so weird, not so common, but 95% of all cases you will encounter is actually this, because it's hard to combine state with this kind of action, with nachdem, because it usually implies an action. It's not impossible to put a state there, but it's rare. That's why just go for it with the perfect, just to simplify it for you. And the same goes now, very streamlined with no exception. If it's present, you go one step further. Here we have perfect, but you could also use preteritum. There's no difference. And if the main clause is already in the past tense, either the perfect or the preteritum, then you actually have to use plusquamperfect. So the past perfect would be the English equivalent. If you don't know the different tenses yet very well, I highly recommend you to check out the playlist about the tenses I link for you in the info cards in the upper right corner. Let's continue now with the next one. The next one is before or ehe. They mean pretty much the same. They mean that something does not happen at the same time, but here the action in the main clause needs to take place before the one in the subordinate clause. So that's the opposite of nachdem. Ich putze mir die Zähne, bevor ich schlafen gehe. So I clean my teeth, so I brush my teeth before I go to bed. So the English equivalent is before. And pay attention here, we do not have to use different tenses. Why not? Because it's often both in the present or both in the future. It's just one after another. And here before does the order alone. No different tenses, because we can use present tense for future things, remember? And the same for bevor, ehe du Computer spielst, machst du deine Hausaufgaben. So before you play computer, you do your homework. Here, tenses stay the same, and the difference between those two is before is much more common than ehe. Ehe is a little bit an older version, but still some people use it, but I recommend you to stick to before. Ehe, it's also easier if you're English native speaker. And let's have a look now at the last one, which is sobald or sowie. That's exactly the same like nachdem, with one tiny difference. The action of the subordinate clause always starts immediately after the action of the main clause ends. No, sorry, the other way around. The action of the main clause immediately starts after the action of the subordinate clause ends. So let's have a look at an example. Ich werde dir helfen, sobald, sowie du den Müll rausgebracht hast. So I will help you in the moment you brought out the trash. Ich helfe dir, sobald du den Müll rausgebracht hast. Exact same thing. Ich habe dir geholfen, sobald, sowie du den Müll rausgebracht hattest. I helped you in the moment you brought out the trash. Here you see, same like nachdem, you have to use the different tenses, and the only difference to nachdem is it highlights the immediately after the action of the subordinate clause has ended. I started the action here, helping. So now you know all the different things about German temporal conjunctions. Pay attention, you may have noticed that two of them are missing. It's wenn and als. They are pretty special, so I've dedicated an entire video to them, which I will link in the info cards here for you. So please check them out. Here, I think there. So please check them out. But if you've learned a lot today and want to support me, please do not forget to like the video and to subscribe to my channel. Of course, if you have any further questions, please do not hesitate to write them in the comment section below. And then I hope I will see you again in one of my other lessons. And until then, viel Spaß und Erfolg beim Deutschlernen.